Welcome to episode 41 of the Bass Shed Podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. D. Lakin Basses. That's right. I always plug D. Lakin Basses. Dan Lakin, co-founder of Lakeland Basses, has a new company, D. Lakin Basses. I talked to him earlier in the week. The Inspired by Ryan Roberts signature bass. I think it's a signature. I don't know. It's part of their series of Inspired Bys. There's a bunch of them. Go to dlakinbasses.com. Check out what else is happening there. And who else has inspired basses by that Dan and the folks over at D. Lakin are putting together. dlakinbasses.com. Check it out. I spoke to Dan earlier in the week, and I talk to him kind of regularly. Just check in. The bass is underway. The Inspired by Ryan Roberts is underway. He sent me some pictures, and I'm waiting till all of those come in and the bass is complete to kind of chronicle the making of process all in one group. One group of posts and pictures, and it's super exciting. I can't wait to play it. If you're interested in checking out some basses, if you're a fan of Lakeland basses at all, you're going to be happy with D. Lakin basses. So much attention to detail. I love talking to Dan about bass construction. When we were talking earlier in this week, I love that he's so opinionated. It's fantastic. Check him out. Check out D. Lakin Basses. Can't say enough great things about working with Dan Lakin and what's happening over there at D. Lakin Basses. On the episode today is one of my favorite people and favorite musicians, Chris Wabich. Chris is a drummer. That's right. I don't always talk to bass players. I think if I remember back on, where I get all these nuggets of a great kind of musical wisdom and artistic wisdom, a lot of it has come from other instrumentalists besides bass players. And this time with Chris was any time with Chris. It's actually always going to be have both of those things involved. I'm always going to walk away with something new to think about and something that I've learned and I can kind of mull over and apply to myself and my own artistry and my own playing. And so that's definitely part of this conversation. Chris and I had been talking about getting him on the podcast, and he texted me one night. He's like, "Yo, man, I'm driving back from Tucson. I got time. Let's do it." So this conversation was recorded while Chris is driving back from Tucson, Arizona. He was doing some work out there with U of A, and this is the first installment. That conversation. I think there's like 3 or 4 different installments of it where like he'd lose reception and then we'd call back. And then that one would go for like another hour. And I think like the final probably, I don't know, maybe 2.5, 3 hours. Like it was close. It was like a 4 or 5 hour conversation. Like it went on for a long time. And so those will all be released at different parts. Because every time we talk, like every installment kind of had a new, we just picked up somewhere new. And it was fantastic. So this is the first version. The first installment of the Chris Wabich podcast series that will be released over time. And we're going to cover a lot of things. We're going to talk about he did a solo show, just him and the drums at the Blue Whale a few years back, and we started talking about that. And it was really captivating. I obviously went to go check it out, and the Blue Whale, for those of you that may know, is not going to survive the pandemic. It did not survive the pandemic. And so that club's closing. And in one of the later installments, Chris and I did talk a lot about that. We talked about the Whale shutting down. We talked about clubs in the LA scene. We talked a lot about that stuff. That's all in another one, and I'll talk about that when that episode comes out. But he did this solo show at the Blue Whale, we talk about that. We just talk about improvisation. We talk about a lot of things, and it's just very much kind of this open stream of consciousness that so much to think about for me, and how to apply it to my playing. Chris is a fantastic drummer. I should probably talk about kind of some of the things he's done. There's that. You hear that in the background? The ambulance going off. That's hilarious. Some of the things he's done, and then the ambulance happens. I really hope that the mic picked up on that. The timing was hilarious. Chris, who's Chris played with? He can be heard with Ludacris, Sting, Leonard Cohen, Stanley Jordan, Brian Johnson from AC/DC, Sheila E, Mark Murphy, the Zappa Family. The list goes on and on. Again, one of my favorite musicians and drummers. Everything's always very connected with him, and what he's playing and the relevance to what he's playing as it relates to the greater good is always thought about, and he'll talk about some of that too. So that's the setup. This is the first installment of my marathon discussion with Chris Wabich.
There's all kinds of shit to talk about. So
there is. Let's start with actually, let's start with some stuff I don't know. How many records do you have out? I know you have a bunch of records, but how many do you have out?
I think last I counted, records like under my own name or direct production, like that I say I produced.
Yeah.
There's around 30, 35 or so.
Okay.
And other stuff I've had my hands in production or just stuff with collaborations, probably.
Right.
Triple that. Yeah, maybe triple that. And then just on playing on people's records. I tried to update my CV once, and it's up there. It's a couple hundred.
Yeah.
It's maybe 400 tracks or something.
That being said, I don't even really know your whole resume. I know you're from North Carolina, and I know that if you're on the gig, it's going to be great. So if Wabich is doing it, I'm doing it. That's just the rule. Other than that, I don't really know. I don't know a lot of the in between. Then we go get Thai food super late at night or something after the gig.
Right. See, yeah, I think a lot of dudes like that are in LA. You just see them on the gig and you shoot your shit, and then the hang is good, and then it's everybody in LA has such depth to them of experience. I mean, it's obvious by their playing. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I mean, me and Jimmy Malis talk about just us as human beings. We're similar. We're just basically a mixed salad. It's but I kind of see if I connect all the dots, I just sort of have pre-jazz and post-jazz person, and it's kind of to me the jazz is the center of it all. Although I have a classical background, but the way I think like a jazz person, I think like an improviser. Even if I'm playing rock, I still think like an improviser.
Yeah, I think it's hard to turn that off.
It kind of sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I know sometimes that pisses people off when they just want to have something reliable and you're just fucking with everything. So I always try to be sensitive to that. Some people truly can't tolerate if you're changing shit up on them all the time. They just don't. That's not their MO, and they get to them. It's what do you say? It's like a cataclysm. You just pull the rug out from under them just by changing one little thing or something.
Man, that's yeah. I mean, I hear that a lot as a bass player. Just they don't like if I'm adding fills or really getting involved with other things that are happening musically. They just want me to just stick to a part and just set up shop on that, because anything else is gonna pull them out of whatever they're doing.
Yeah, and that's just sort of the company you keep. It's almost like I've actually played gigs with other people that they're kind of they kind of got a few things together, but they kind of more rely on the drummer to make it happen. Right. You know what I'm saying? And they want you to cover them up.
Right.
You can just tell. They want you to play out and play a bunch of stuff because they feel uncomfortable when they're exposed.
Yeah.
And to me, I just feel well, what's the point in that? I should follow you. It should be a dialogue. I can dialogue for days with people if they're open, but
right.
If I'm supposed to cover you up and no one notices you, then that's like I'm overdoing it, you know?
Well, sure, and then it's not at all engaging for you. Then you're trying to like start the conversation and have the whole conversation by yourself. You know, that's not fun at all. There's no exchange.
Yeah, I can just play solo drums if I want to do that. You know?
Right.
I have no problem. I have no problem doing that.
Right. Well, yeah. Let's talk about that. Like one of my favorite times at the Whale. Every time I would go to the Whale, I would catch like a set, and then I was good. Like for whatever I was going to see. There was a couple times where I'd hang for both sets, but very rarely.
Mm-hmm.
But when you did your solo drum concert there, how many years ago was that? It was like 4?
That was in, I think, 2016, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, that seems right-ish. Talk about that. Talk about how you, because you had this whole arc to the show. You had 3 different kits there. I'll let you talk about it. I'll let you talk about the concert and how you put together the program. And the program, for everybody listening, was a show of just you at the jazz club, the Blue Whale, R.I.P.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, R.I.P. And I got a lot to say about that, too, which is not going to be favorable for a lot of people, I'm afraid,
okay.
But that's okay. I mean, it's fine. But anyway, so, yeah, so I had done solo drum set concerts before, and I even did a tour of it, of like about 10 dates back in around around 2007, I believe, or 8. There was a Percussive Arts Society convention, and I played 2 of them, and I just went, did a tour leading up to that because I wanted to do the melodic thing. So I had experimented for a while with this idea. When people change pitch on the drum, they usually press the drum. Okay, and when you do that, when you press on a drum head, you're knocking it out of tune.
Sure.
It's like when you stretch a string. So your center is now gone, and the only way to get it back is to hit the rim to bring it back up to where it was. So you have 2 choices. If you do the pressing thing, you have to crank your drums up really high. So it's kind of where it was, but there's no guarantee you'll be in the same key center when you're done. It's impossible. So I developed a technique where you touch these harmonics on the drum very lightly, but the stick has to be at a 90-degree angle. And you can get about a major third range out of every drum if you tune it a certain way. So it gets a little technical, but basically I had about an octave and a 5th range on it. Okay,
then what key did you choose to tune the kit to as a whole, and why that key?
It was basically like, I guess it would be almost like an F major or D minor tonality. And the reason is because the money notes of a 10-inch tom is a D, and a money note of a 14-inch floor tom is F natural.
Oh.
As far as like where naturally, most of them in the universe kind of want to sing pretty good there, right? Give or take a half step. But to bend the stuff to go to the pitches you want, you have to make the top head very loose and the bottom head tighter. So what I did is I tuned the bottom head where the harmonic was an octave. So it's cranked. Like the bottom head, the floor tom was an F natural. So that way, because the top head is so floppy that if you barely touch it, you just kind of splats and you don't know what note it is. But if you hear the octave ringing, you're like, oh, cool, F natural, no problem.
Sure.
So the rack tom is normally a D's. I tuned it down to a C so that I would have that range and the D would sound nice, right? And so
with the bend, like accounting for the bend.
Yeah, correct. And then the other tom, it could have been an A, or it could have been like an A flat. But I figure, A flat on the floor tom was a good money note if you tune the top. This is complicated, but if you tune the top head asymmetrically and one of your harmonics is just flat of an A flat, as soon as you go up to the A flat, it'll couple and the A flat lights up and you hear it very clearly. So I made the middle tom A natural.
Okay.
And then snare drum was also a natural.
Okay.
So yeah, it's kind of F major tonality. So that way I could get the snare up comfortably up to high C, and then I had an extra drum floor tom that was a low C. So yeah, I guess that's true. So I had quite a bit of range there. So that's yeah, interesting. So yeah, it's funny. So actually, it's 3-octave range. I was thinking of the standard kit, but no, it's 3-octave range. So I would just have to, when I first did it, I would do different tunings based on what song I was playing.
Okay.
And then I thought, that's kind of productive because guitar players do that, but also like if I had to borrow drums to do it, it needs to be a standard setup with a standard tonality. So
Sure.
Change the key or change the song or just forget that song. Do something else.
Right.
So I made a list of stuff that I knew I could pull off, and then I made a list of stuff that maybe I could think about pulling off, and started attacking it. And it turned out to be more like practicing, probably how you practice double bass. It's like tuning exercises, just going da 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 da, going up and down the scale and trying to make it like I would turn on my strobe tuner and I would try to see exactly where harmonic was, to get that sweet spot. And so what wound up happening is like you're basically soloing the whole time with one hand and pressing the tuning changes with the other very lightly. So you've got to premeditate where you're going with the left hand and very lightly rest that stick on it so you don't hear a clack, and then you play it with the right hand. And man, that's a bunch of bullshit. That's like really, to pull that shit off under like a foot ostinato, it was like, oh damn, it's really.
Yeah. So I mean, how much of that? I mean, is there with to bring the double bass into it with your left hand? I mean, you have all this muscle memory. There's always kind of micro shifts to center a pitch.
Yeah.
But, it's like you can pretty much, most guys could just like fling their hand down the neck and they know where a note's gonna be. How much of that is that similar with tuning with your pressure? Like you kind of know this much pressure is going to be this interval.
Well, like I said, if you put pressure on the drum and you press on it, your center of pitch goes out. So the drum that I had tuned to a C, if I smashed it, it would go down to a B. So then my whole situation is screwed up. So what I did is I made it where you don't press on it. It's just where the stick touches the skin at a certain spot, you'll get the acceleration of the pitch. In relation
to the rim of the drum?
Yes. So for example, like on a 10-inch tom, if I went in like by an inch and a half, if it goes from C to C sharp, you can go then by 2.5 inches or so, but not in the middle, like off to the side, and then you strike the middle. It goes up from there. Anyways, it's like this, and not every head's the same. And once I changed up heads for better tone, then the where the harmonics were, it changed. Where the sweet spot was. So I basically just spent like a couple of weeks every day tuning exercises and running my set.
Yeah.
And then at a certain while, I would start trying to sing what I'm playing to cut loose the technicality of it.
Sure.
So if I wanted to improvise, I would try to sing exactly what I'm playing as I'm playing it, and really do it for real. And that was cool. And I could do it maybe like half the time and not just totally lose it. And then so I go, okay, I need to up my concentration. So I turned on talk radio, like louder than the drums. So as a total distraction.
To be able to tune that out, so you can like to deal with tuning out noise.
And just uber concentrate on what my idea is and delivering that idea. So by the time I got to the whale, I had enough kind of like backup options if something fucked up that I would know, okay, I can cover myself. If I miss the pitch there, I can cover it another way by doing this or that or whatever. And the first set of the whale was pretty okay, but second set, I really thought it was a great set. I mean, I actually found a bunch of new ways through those problems, and I had a good time. It was just almost like it was a jazz gig. it was really weird, man. It was like, because I've done that solo thing, like I said, maybe 15 times before then, but I never felt like really free with it, you know?
Did it
And
leading up to that whale gig, did it just feel like kind of an act, like you do this rep and like you kind of the soloing would be kind of the same thing and you're just playing these worked out pieces like all the way through? Like was there a lot of fresh improvisation involved before the whale?
Yeah, for sure. But in a way, it's like, you know, this as a rhythm section player, you know this is true. When you're playing with a soloist and the soloist doesn't quite get what they meant, there's going to be a whole other chorus of them trying shit.
Right. They're basically, that's the apology course. That's they're apologizing for losing their train of thought and then like, well, this is what I meant to say.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're sitting there going, oh, fuck, another chorus, right? So if I listen to like a gig of myself playing that shit, you know, from the year or two before that, I go, man, I'm playing way too much and I never got it. It's pretty close and the idea is cool, but I could have done it. I could have said it all in a very good chorus instead of like 3 questionable, you know? And so I felt like at the whale, I just played long enough. It was like, and it, you know, it was also like partly that room and the people who were there. It was totally quiet and everybody was really down for the experience and they were really tuned in. That's typical of the whale. And I mean, I don't think I've ever had a sucky night in the whale because it's like a good listening room. But I did that show at Alva's.
Okay.
Later, like maybe a year and a half later. And it was cool in a different way. I did like a 1 continuous set, I believe. I didn't take a break. And with the whale, I did 2 sets, and I felt like the first set was kind of like the old way, where like, okay, I got a couple things. I got about 60, 68, 72% what I meant, and like, man, it's so close, right? So then the second set, I feel like, man, that was nearly 100%.
Is there did you do anything specifically at the break to kind of recalibrate kind of where you were at mentally and emotionally to deliver 100% in set 2? Or was it just kind of a comfort thing of like, all right, I got that out of the way. Now we're good. Now let's start here.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's more like, in a way, like when you miss something, in your mental determination, you're like, motherfucker, never, not again. Yeah. Enjoy that mistake. Fuck you. And so the very first piece that I played at the whale show was the least one that I worked out. I just figured, this shit I can do on, you know, no problem. I got this shit. And so I cranked it. I hit it, you know. I didn't practice that piece at all. And when I played it, it just didn't go anywhere. And I was like, dude, really? I shaded the fuck out of everything else to make sure it was going to sound good. I didn't even care about this one. I assumed that I got it, and I don't. So that was like my warning shot. Like, okay, motherfucker, take a breath and get on your shit now. So the second set, I kind of played the stuff that I enjoyed the most because I wanted to end with stuff that I just like to play, you know? The highlights, if I remember, because I need to go and find my friend Jenny St. Angel videoed that show. And she didn't do separate audio. She just brought a camera. And actually, Tom Bartolak was going to do it, and for some reason, he couldn't make it. And so...
Tom not make something? Man, Tom's always, like, there early with, like, 15 cameras.
I know.
Tom's
and I don't know... Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. I don't remember. But it was like, you know, I certainly can't put demands on anyone. No, man, you got to drop everything and get your ass on. I think he had some problem at home or something, but you know, nothing personal, of course. But like, so Jenny was like, "Oh, okay, let me go home and get my cameras." And so she scrambled and she got 2 cameras and showed up and did it. And so, yeah, I'd like to go through that sometime and see. But I seem to remember mentally as a note, I like my Calypso piece that I did on drum set. It was basically kind of like rhythm changes based. And there was a blues that I did, I remember, was cool. And also, there's a piece Max Roach used to play called Mr. Hi-Hat.
Okay.
And it's funny, Max's birthday was yesterday, and I see Max tributes all over people putting on Instagram and stuff. And I remember I did that tribute, and I go, people, when they do a tribute to someone like that, they're always just copying their licks and doing their shtick. And I'm like, that's so insulting.
Right.
It's not a tribute. That's just like to some bullshit connection that, oh yeah, I've listened to a bunch of this stuff, but you haven't really, if all you're doing is copying it, right? You didn't internalize it. And I've always felt that, like.
Yeah, I have strong feelings about the similar thing. Like, to truly respect an innovator is to innovate your own voice. Like, that's that's maybe inspired by, but that's the only way to truly show homage.
Yeah.
Is to that's the spirit. That's like maybe grab some of their licks or their tone or whatever, but to really like make that shit your own, because that's all they did. They grabbed someone else's shit and made it their own.
That's right. Man, you're gonna laugh. Ben Thomas is calling me on mobile right now. I haven't talked to that fool. That's hilarious. That's funny.
Oh.
I'll call him back later. But that's random because I haven't talked to him in like weeks. But anyway.
I don't think I've talked to him since before his accident.
Yeah.
And I was hanging with Corey yesterday and checked in on the squad, see how Herbert's doing, see how Ben's doing.
Yeah.
And it seemed I heard Ben was in good spirits. Things are.
I think in general he is
coming around. And I remember that time, man. Like that went down like right kind of when the first lockdown happened.
Yeah.
And I remember
it was
being out some of those nights driving, and like people were driving so aggressively, like passing in like oncoming traffic lanes and stuff, and just being idiots. And I'm just like, what's going on here?
Because they were like in a hurry to go get toilet paper and buy snacks from Trader Joe's. Yeah.
You think like the visibility, because cops were still working, the visibility of getting caught when there's nobody on the road is so much greater.
Yeah.
That's just a dumb time to do it. If you're going to be an idiot, this is a terrible time to be an idiot. There's nothing to hide behind right now.
Yeah, I found during this pandemic, people are more aggressive and driving nuts. It's bad. I don't enjoy being on the road.
No, they're taking out all their frustration of being cooped up. They're just taking it out on something they can control, which is their car.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
It's awful.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't remember where we were on the other topic.
I remember one thing I loved that you did that night.
Max Roach. Sorry, Max Roach.
Oh, yeah, Roach. Yeah.
Okay, so
we're back to Roach.
We used to play a piece called Mr. Hi-Hat, and it was only on the hi-hat. And he did all this pyrotechnics, and he did a feathering shit and all this, and it was all swing, and had a theme, and he kind of like destroyed all the potential for the hi-hat. Like basically, here's everything you can possibly do.
I always thought that was Philly Joe that did that stuff, like with the fanning and all that stuff. Okay.
But Max would stop his concerts and just bring the hi-hat to the front of the stage and just do a piece, and that's really cool because he is like more of a in that respect, it's like a classical percussion approach of minimalism, right?
Right.
And so I used to play duo with this really weird sax player, and he'd be like, "Yeah, I want to write a piece like where all you're playing is hi-hat," and like Max. And so I worked out all that shit back then. So what I decided to do is I'm really also into playing the tambourine called Rick, which is it's Egyptian or Turkish or whatever. It's from the Middle East Mediterranean region, and changes name depending on what you call it. But so I was like, well, just do the tribute to Max and just call it Mr. Rick because it's funny to me, but also it's like it goes a lot of places, right?
Yeah.
So basically it starts out.
Super inside title, by the way. Like you have to know a lot about
Yeah.
the lineage of drums and percussion.
Right. And
to like understand that's pretty deep.
Yeah, exactly. And so I feel like there's a lot of shit that I do like that people just they don't understand. If I start explaining it, then the rabbit hole just like implodes, right? So
Right.
I just started out with only a Rick and hi-hat. And then eventually I do my shit where I do it all together, at the same time. But I just remember like that particular night at the Whale, the stuff flows sometimes, and sometimes I don't really practice playing. Why would I practice playing tambourine and hi-hat on hours on end? You know what I'm saying? Like I don't have
Right.
I don't have a 45-year history doing that. So it's more about I know the techniques of both, and then you just don't think about it. You make a melodic statement and hope it comes out the way you want. And I remember the flow then was really good, and I was playing I think in 11 the whole time.
Okay.
So to flow in 11 with those two instruments and putting it together, and then have it go to the drum set and then go from 11 to 4 or whatever I did, it was seamless. And it was like, that's the best I can expect, you know what I'm saying? But I think that's an appropriate tribute to Max, because Max played his personality on the instrument. He didn't play like a bunch of, choppy rudiments and bullshit, a bunch of show-off crap, He played like music.
Sure.
So I just picked a topic and I played music. That's so Max, I was like, that's the tribute.
Yeah.
That is the tribute. And I remember there was I did that. I either I posted it once or I went back on YouTube when you can put up response videos.
Okay. I've never really gotten into the YouTube thing. Like I have more so lately, but like.
Yeah.
Well,
this is like 15 years ago.
Okay.
Someone would post something, and you could post a response video on their page as like, okay, motherfucker, you did this. I'm responding to you.
YouTube
so
battles.
All their viewers would see. Yeah, and they took it down after a while. It got fucked, So I did that to a Max Roach. Okay, some famous rock guy, unnamed, did his tribute, and he did what we're talking about. He just played a bunch of licks, and not as good, and not in the right order, and not musically.
Sure.
He just played a bunch of Max quotes, and it kept playing them, and I'm like, well, that's 1.0. That's like what you would write down if you're transcribing it. You didn't even Max made a variation of his theme. You just played the theme. It's like, that's terrible. But nobody knows. Like, most people don't know. They don't get the context of it. So I posted something like that, what I did as a response, and it was like, the hate just dropped out of the sky. Because, who is this motherfucker going up against this famous rock drummer playing a bunch of melodic shit and no chops? And I'm like, exactly!
Yeah, right.
That's the point!
Yeah.
All of you guys missed it. So now, so it was like that, that response shit stopped. Oh, I should tell you, it's a side tangent. It's really funny. Remember the song, Fuck You by CeeLo Green, right?
Sure.
I made a response video, and
to CeeLo's version or somebody else covering it?
Yeah, his version.
Okay.
He did a live on some TV show version, and I posted it. And in a couple of days, I got about over 30K views, and then they shut it down.
YouTube took it down?
They disconnected it as a response video, because it was back when you could get. There was a thing called text to normal. And it was like you could pick characters and you could make them talk. Like, you remember the Jazz Robots videos?
Yeah, I remember those things. Yeah.
So I did a few of those. So in the text to normal, they had these two rap guys. So I picked the two rap guys and I had them go at CeeLo Green, hardcore. Poking fun at him and that song and each other, and just every fourth word was fuck you. And it was and so I remember one of the punchlines was it just, you got to see it. I mean, it moves a little slow because the way that program was, it's too slow. If I could double the speed, it would be more funny.
Right.
But still, the content is really tight, and it even applies. And my punchline at the end was a rag on Bill Cosby, and it was that was before Bill Cosby's all shit happened, right?
Right.
So if you play that now, it's even more funny. It's even more stupid. But I don't want to lay claims to it because I made my own YouTube channel for it, and separate. I don't even know if I have a login for it anymore. Like, I didn't want to link it to my shit and have people hazing me.
Sure.
Who are CeeLo fans. I was like, no, thanks, man. But anyway, it's just how, it's one of those funny YouTube things where, like, you can get crazy traction just by posting the stupidest shit. Whereas, like, a well thought out.
Man, I think the dumbest stuff gets the most traction.
Yeah.
Like the dumbest stuff, Like, remember, like, Double Rainbow? Remember that dude freaking out about the Double Rainbow?
Right. Or Chocolate Rain.
Or Chocolate Rain, or like the Honey Badger guy. Like, any of that stuff back in the day, there was, oh, you got to see this, you got to see this. And it gets so much press. Gangnam Style.
Right.
I think that started as, it's just like, this is dumb.
Okay.
This is so dumb.
This is also a pot shot, but I was slated to be on, like, feature of the week for Modern Drummer's online blog.
Okay.
And it was like about a month advance. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, send us your stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I got bumped because they scheduled other people. But I got bumped that week because remember the sensation of this drummer's at the wrong gig, and it's that guy in a church, like, twirling his shit, twirling his sticks to some hack rock band.
Was that a thing going around the internet drum world?
Yeah.
I never caught on to that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the week that blew up. And so I was like,
got that guy? Did they get, like, whoever that guy?
Yeah, they did a feature on him, and I'm like, really, guys? Really? Really? I've got, like, a huge career of stuff to talk about, and actually people would maybe learn something and be inspired. And you're just going to go with a church drummer who's good at twirling his sticks.
Right.
Just, okay rock drummer, but really? So I was so mad. Like, I said, let's reschedule, and I was like, I just never responded. I was like, yeah, forget it. I'm not gonna play.
Yeah, exactly. If those are the rules, like, I'm out.
Yeah, and I've made other career choices like that are like, it's almost anti-famous decisions or whatever, but, like, it's just more like the principle of it all. It's like, if what I got to do is that to be on your page and to be taken serious,
right,
considered. It's like, well, okay, I can do that, but I'd rather, if I'm going to be stupid, I'd rather be stupid doing something that's going to be more funny than that,
right. Going after CeeLo.
Yeah, I already did it, right? So I already got the views, and so, it's just funny. I mean, I would rather post some cat videos and or like go dark and just be anonymous and, like, be a harsh ass music critic and just go after everyone.
Yeah.
And then watch the
You should, man.
controversy.
You should start the new downbeat, like another downbeat.
Oh, yeah, that'd be vicious.
I mean,
that would be vicious,
dude. But if you could make the new downbeat, but, like, kind of make it like Mad Magazine also, so it was funny just about the whole thing. It was like satire and shit talk about all of it.
Yeah,
man, that would blow up. I would be all over that.
I think so, because, like, some of the ones that are, like, meant for jazz musicians, they're not that funny.
No.
They're like, there's a couple of blogs and a couple of, like, things you can follow, like, on Instagram and stuff, and you're going, okay, like, 1 out of every 25 of these is good, and the rest of them are, like, just guys trying to, like, glom on to something that was funny. Now it's not funny.
Yeah, no, I mean, I used to read downbeat. There's nothing ever funny in there. It's, I would read it for, not the reviews of the records, just to see what records were coming out. Just to get hip to, like, what the releases were. That was basically it. Other than that, like, there's not too much stuff that was ever that interesting in there to me. But if it was just, like, not people behind the desk anymore. If it was, like, working musicians doing that shit, that would be the best.
Oh, it would be funny. Yeah, it'd be ridiculous. Well, I had an eye-opening experience in 2011. I was touring. Me and Brad Dutz were doing a college tour in Illinois.
Set up who Brad Dutz is for the listeners.
Brad Dutz is he's one of the most gifted percussionists in the world as far as like being crazy, motherfucker. He's it just you can look up. He's played with everyone from Kiss to Willie Nelson to he's a founding member of Tribal Tech.
Oh, I didn't know that. Actually,
played on a bunch of movies like Star Trek. Yeah. Anyway, his resume is huge. But back when you could be a recording, TV, film guy, he did a lot.
Okay.
But he was also like one of the earlier LA percussionists to like take ethnic instruments and throw them together when they don't belong together and create new sounds. So it's good for that kind of stuff where people are like, yeah, I kind of want something ethnic, but I don't want it to be so Indian or so Latin or so. Right. You go, yeah, great. I'm just gonna play tabla in one hand and oud in the other or whatever. And he could just do it and be creative and that's how he got known basically. So we've been playing duo for like 30 years, but yeah, I think it's 2011. We were on a tour. It was about 15 dates, and one of them was in the same town where Downbeat is.
Okay.
And so Brad knew the editor, and we had lunch with him, and we went to visit their place, right? So I'll cut to the chase. Basically, I asked him straight up. I saw their review room and all the CDs they had for review. I know there's a couple thousand CDs sitting on desks in there. And I said, is that like what you got to wade through? He goes, that's just for 1 month. Next month we'll have that many. And I was like, holy crap. You got to narrow all that shit down to like 10, basically. He's like, yeah. I was like, so what's the criteria? Straight up. And he said, well, known artists, priority. Known publicists. If your publicist is a badass that we work with all the time, the credibility is high. It's also a leg up. Third consideration is it has to be New York artists. And I was like, and I've known that for years because I've known LA guys who would send them everything and never get a fucking review. And I was like, okay, so tell me why. And he goes, every time we review an LA guy, the people who place ads in our magazine, they're all from New York. All of the entertainment companies and managers. And they call us and they're like, what the fuck is this? Right. We're giving you money and why are you covering these LA bitches?
Right. Yeah, but like Van Doren reads or, Zoom, recorders or whatever. Like I remember when Rustlin was on the back page for the Zoom recorder ad. Like those are just international companies that you can buy at any music store or the Guitar Center.
Yeah. Right. But what I'm saying is like that's when shit started to change. When the stuff started to go online and no one started to buy magazines anymore, and then LA people were as visible to the world, and everyone discovered there's a bunch of badasses in LA, and now everyone like look what was pre-COVID, look what was booked and what was hot. It's everyone from LA. There's nobody from New York who had traction, or if they are from New York, they're originally from LA, like anybody. It's like you know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, so. It's just funny. So then Downbeat had to immediately change their tune. And so now, like, there's LA people who getting reviews in there. And I go, really? Why did you review that? Like, out of all the people in LA who are badasses, you picked, like, this, very first record by someone, like, fresh out of school. And I'm like, why not Mitch Foreman? Someone who's got, like, 40 records out of his own name, you know? Like, Mitch played with fucking Wayne Shorter for 3 years. He should be everything he puts out should have a review.
He's ridiculous. I don't know if it was the last one, but the last trio record I heard was with Steve and Kevin. Man, Mitch sounds amazing. Amazing. Like you cannot exhaust that guy's vocabulary. It's ridiculous. Yeah,
he's a real deal. And he's also like he's not afraid to like bash out some crazy fusion rock and just take it to the wall, you know? So what I'm saying, like let's just run down the keyboard list. And I know I'm going to miss people. I'm going to fuck it up. But like, let's just say I'm going to guess who has had reviews in that magazine and not. Like, probably. Mitch has probably been in there. Okay, but not everything in Mitch, right? Admaro, has he been in there? I don't know. I don't think so. Maybe Distant Friends, his first one did, because it had some famous people. It had Erskine and Alex Acuna on it, I remember. And I think Abe. Okay. I think Abe was on it, but so maybe that got in there. I don't know.
What year was that? Do you know what year that record was?
That was like 90s, 95, 6, 7.
Oh wow, okay.
But like, has Jeff Babco got a CD in there?
Right.
Has Matt Rohde got anything in there? Steve Weingart, Brandon Coleman. It's like this.
Maybe Coleman after his stint with Kamasi. Maybe post Kamasi he got in there, but I doubt he got in there before. I don't think he got a review pre-Kamasi, right?
Right. So what I'm saying is, like, after I visited them, when everything went virtual and LA people got traction, they had to review LA people. It's undeniable.
Yeah.
Because they get traction, they get views and stuff. They go, oh, okay, we gotta like check it out or whatever.
Yeah.
No shade on Downbeat. It's just like they, for 45, 50 years, were centered around New York, and had my personal choices been different, had I known, like, maybe I would have spent my 20s in New York and made friends with them, and I would be more well known now, maybe. But also, in a way, I'm glad it didn't, because LA was very good to me that I could play cross genre. I could play Middle Eastern and Latin jazz and Caribbean jazz, and play some pan and play some jazz, some straight ahead stuff with really good players, and nobody cares.
Right.
It's all encouraged. Whereas in New York, it's like you cross too much, and everyone's like, that guy's no focus.
Okay.
You got to kind of be like, if you're, let's just I'm going to put it out there. If I moved to New York in my 20s or 30s, I had to come out being like the smartest white jazz drummer there is.
Right.
That's your fucking angle. And I don't think that it's possible to be smarter and still say something on the drums than like someone like Bill Stewart.
Right.
Like, he's got it.
Yeah.
He's got it covered. They don't need another guy, or Matt Wilson. They got it covered.
Yeah.
Right. And there's other drummers up there who are smarter, who can play like fantastic shit that nobody else in the world can play. But is it like, could you throw it on a gig with Schofield? Nah, not really.
Sure. Right.
You know what I mean? Does it have some grease behind it?
Right.
Not really. But it's so smart. You're like, holy crap! It's like, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, I mean that happens. I mean, on
Yeah,
any instrument, there's always the guys that are so technical that it's like, I can appreciate how much time. I'm thinking about a couple specific bass players right now. How much time it took to get that together. Like, man, good on you. I don't want to listen to it at all, but I like watching it. I like watching it as a bass player because I know what it took. It must have taken to get there, but I don't want to listen to it. It doesn't.
Correct.
I'm not
correct.
interested in it for what it doesn't move me in any way. But it's fun to watch. It's a great, like in the cutaway in an instructional video when they're done being interviewed and then they go do a clip of playing. Like that's what it is. It's a spectator sport.
Right. Total car chase. I know. I've seen some crazy car chase musicians where you're just like, God damn, you got to give it up and just go, that's tremendous. I could never do that. Never.
Right.
And it's a lot of people have the same feeling about what I do. I mean, not that they're like, anybody could do what I'm doing, but the sum total of, here's a Rick and a hi-hat and playing 11, make it interesting, they would struggle. And the reason is because they're concerned with the other spectrum, which is the technical, right? Or, you know what I'm saying? It's like, everyone's got their focus. And for me, my focus has been like, okay, 99.9% of you motherfuckers are doing this. I'm going to do everything else except that and see how it goes.
Right.
I feel like I got scars all over me from trying to like explore unexplored territory for hours and hours where it's really, really hard. And like, I remember when I was in my 20s, I took a bunch of bird heads and I go, okay, except for the exact melody, which now I probably do the exact melody, but back then I was like, phrasing and tonality. Make that work as close as you can instead of just like playing the rhythms, which that's kind of a cop out, right?
Right.
So phrasing, like muting and open tones and closed tones, high and low, including muting the kick drum and muting, all the stuff. I was like, get it as close as you can. And I was like, wow, my vocabulary was like opened up tenfold because I had to create stuff to do that. And I didn't see anybody else doing that. But it's like I really suffered for, about 2 months just going like, here's one head. Can you play it one time through is the way like I would transcribe it, is thinking about a line from the bottom to the top, and just going, how would that really translate? Like really, not a bullshit way. And I was like, wow.
Right. So and you're playing it across a 5-piece kit, right?
Yeah, at that time I was doing four.
Okay.
But like
a stock like jazz setup.
Yeah, but even let's just take a small phrase like the end of "Well You Need," right? So I could just go, bass drum, rag tom, snare tom, go go ga go, go go ga go, great. But then you got these open tones. That's not the phrasing, dude. Right?
Right.
And how many fucking drummers do that? 99.9% of them.
Right. That's just like an overall shape.
Yeah, and they feel like, okay, I did that. Like successful translation. I'm like, nope. That's 1.0. That's 1.0. Or they'll just play it on the snare. Pa-da-da-da. Pa-da-da-da.
Sure.
And you're like, no, dude. It's got to be mute. It's like almost like mute kick drum, mute rack tom, open snare drum, open tom. Go go ga go, go go ga go.
Right.
That's the phrasing. It's not go go ga go, go go ga go. Right. I'm being really super hyper specific right now, but this is the point.
Right. But that's the process you went through.
Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
But I still feel like now I'm going through it in a different way. But since COVID, it's been beautiful to like just go off the deep end and just go into that explorative unknown again. But it's very painful. I have to say, it's really.
How much of it can you easily access in a live situation? So instead of just making it an exercise. So if you just wanted to reach into the bag of tricks and pull it out, it's not there yet.
As soon as I make a conscious effort to pull in the new bag of tricks, the flow is gone.
Okay. Wow. Sure. Right, because then it's there's rules. The rule is I'm bringing in the new tricks. So that automatically,
exactly.
like I'm gonna say this really one fancy word as the fourth word in this sentence, and so all you're doing is focusing on the fancy word. It's not a natural statement.
There's no flow to it. You got to have a history to flow with that stuff, and that's why, there's a lot of people who practice too much, and when you play gigs with them, it doesn't matter what you play with them because they're just playing what they play, and you're like,
it's exhausting. It's exhausting.
Terrible.
Like. I'm thinking of a couple people that I know we both know, and they're fantastic players. And I like listening to them, actually, more than I like playing with them. But when I play with them, it's just like this anxiety of just like, dude, take a breath. Like, let it breathe. Like, come on. Like, you're killing me. But as a listener, I'm just like, yeah, they're crushing it. This is killing.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I mean, that's rough to play with, is the over-practiced guy or girl.
Yeah, I mean, to be a true jazz musician, that's how I feel. It's like you have to come to an agreement with yourself of what your batting average is.
Yeah. Like,
because there's shit you're gonna try in a moment, and a percentage of it is going to work. And then there's an arrangement in your brain of the arc of everything. There's a percentage of that that's going to work. And then there's the unknown that's going to happen right down at that spot with those people.
Right.
And you have to make an agreement that you're going to allow that in.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't. And so for me, I allow like more of that in than most people. And that's maybe why I get tweaked more by when people don't do that. They don't allow it. I'm like, okay. all right, so now I got to spend my energy not listening to you and dialoguing with something else. That's a drag.
Right. And it's, I mean, unless it's a duo gig, if I'm feeling like that in a trio scenario, usually it's never the drummer that is that guy in the band, from my experience. But my bow out is my bow out is to always just like, all right, well then me and the drummer will have just like this kind of sub conversation behind what this guy's doing, because he's not really part of this anymore. So there's at least that.
Correct.
The times I've had to play with the over-practiced musician in a duo setting, like that's rough. It's hard to stay engaged when they're not also engaged for the greater good.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm finding working for me now, like I used to practice for years since I was a teenager. I would practice nuance and texture and colors and shades of things and different gradients of flavor, you know. And that was my whole trip. I was like, literally, like I remember when I was like 15 years old, I'd practice a phrase or something, like my teacher would loan me something with Tony Williams or something playing, and I go, man, that's really razor sharp and really, you know, looks like it's to me. It sounds like what crystal looks like. So I try ideas and I try to crystallize it. And then I go, okay, now take that whole thing and put a fog on it, and now make it really shady, and now make it lazy as hell, and but still the beat's still there, and you know what I'm saying? So for years I dealt with that nuance, and that helped me as a jazzer to like play different rooms and stuff. But now I feel like the routine, if I'm going in the deep end of the unknown of what's new vocabulary, I go, okay, no man, stick to a regimen, make it like clockwork, and go through permutations and do target practice, because once you go through all of them, you'll know all of them, and they're more familiar to you, like classical music. And the shit shows up on a gig way faster that way, because I'm not worried about how to work it into a phrase. I'm only worried about the mechanics of it and where it lands, and how it feels, and you know, I'm saying the mechanics. So therefore, anytime I just think about, I have a feeling of the mechanics, and I know the shape. So I don't think about the notes. I go into the subconscious faster.
Right, where you're just thinking about it as an idea and how to say the idea.
Yeah, exactly. As like a shape or a color or a texture, or because like, you know, to truly improvise it, like Koronokis 300. You know, constant flow of notes, you got to be super relaxed and super, you know, in tune with what you're playing.
Right.
And then so you can't just go like, here's my new shit over that. But if you just
unless you want to sound like that guy.
Exactly, right? And so but if I just worked out a bunch of 30-second note permutations, which have no shape or musical context, just permutations of stuff, and I kind of know where the general accent lands. Instead of all this, you know, I just think of boom. It's like I'm not worried about all the other shit. This is an example, right? Then I go, great, I can just use it now.
Right.
Because if you really break down those players and those people, that's all they're doing. I don't want to belittle it, but it's like, man, like how many times is someone just like flowing along and then they just start immediately resorting to 30-second note chops?
Yeah, and I mean there's no shortage of even amazing, internationally recognized improvisers that like, okay, that's, you know, that's one of their default things. They all have their, you know, maybe you could qualify it as just style, or you go all the way back to Parker and like, all right, well now you're just playing those licks. But you can fast forward. Exactly. You could also fast forward to, you know, present day Matheny, and like he's got his little bag of tricks that gets him through what he's doing. But that's also very much his style too. So those kind of go hand in hand at some level.
Yeah, for sure. Well, see, it's like this. When I was formative years, I studied with Jeff Hamilton, and one of the things he told me was like, for every song that you have, This is what he learned from Ray Brown. It's like, for every song that you have that you're playing, you should have in your mind a default arrangement of that song. It's money. You worked it out, and you could just play it every time, and that shit is golden. So that if you're on the bandstand and you're not inspired, or there's someone talking or some bullshit going on, you can play that and still sound good. But if you're inspired and you want to derail, I'm just contextualize it now. But my internalization of it was that you can play off of that arrangement, always. You play the anti-arrangement or around your arrangement, or improvise, come back to it or something.
But it's still rooted, but it's still all in relation to this arrangement that you have.
Yeah, and it's like, so for every tune in your set, you should have a default thing that's like super money.
Huh.
So I have some of those, and I feel like it's contingent on other people being open to the sensitivity of that. Like, you just call it standard and people just play it, and then if you redo it, if you do a rearrangement on the spot and nobody reacts to you, you're like, okay, this is going to be a hard gig.
Been there. So let's put this. Let's bring this to life a little bit. So let's pick a standard here. Just call out a standard and then talk about what your arrangement, like, that's in your head would be. That's kind of always turning in the back. Yeah.
It's always turning in the back. Well, it's very specific about the energy level and the openness level, and like what how much you want to push it.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So, for example,
like if you're on like a trio gig and you know it's gonna be cool, it's like Edwin and Kuntz, like everybody's gonna be fine.
Okay.
So you're not battling the musicians at all, and you know that this is going to be comfortable and they're going to be willing to go with you, and it's going to be a success.
Right. Okay, so if it's those specific guys and I'm in charge and I'm calling the tune, like, I want to call stuff that I know that those guys don't have to go into my world too much. Because, like, Kuntz doesn't go into Crazy Odd Time or into Middle Eastern music or whatever. But his take on, like, Brazilian is pretty interesting. It's not Brazilian, but it's cool. What he does with the Brazilian thing is really cool.
Okay.
And Edwin can hang with that. And so I say, okay, let's just play, like, Sophisticated Lady. It's like an ECM, not Brazilian.
Okay.
Right? So you got a standard, and then you got total intention on top of it.
Sure.
And I'm going to pick up my shaker, and I'm going to play some ECM ride cymbal, and I'm going to make it super dialogue-y, but that shaker is enough Brazilian as a glue, and then the dialogue can go fucking off the cliff.
Okay.
And Kuntz goes off the cliff, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so Edwin will be able to hang with both worlds because he understands how those work, and you go, great, done. That's a cool idea, and it's like, I didn't have to sweat it.
Right. Yeah, I think that's I didn't know quite the depth of what you meant by arrangement, so that's why I was curious. Unless it was just like, some background figures under the head or something like that. But if it's just like a specific vibe, they're like, okay, if we're going to play Sophisticated Lady, I'm showing up with it in this ECM-ish, Yeah. Oh, are you breaking up? Are you in the mountains right now?
I am getting close to the border. Maybe.
Okay. You're cutting out there for a second.
Yeah. Which means a gas stop. Which means I'll go back. But we'll go to part 2.
No, we didn't. All right, let's do that. If we're gonna, this is a place to pause. Let's pick up on the arrangements after the gas break. All right, if you want to know more of the Bass Shed Podcast, if you want to hear more episodes, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or Google Play to talk about what's happening at the Bass Shed. So for those of you that may have listened to episode 40 with Derek Frank, excuse me, I talked about a hard drive crashing, right? An external hard drive crashing where I lost a ton of stuff. I had been aiming and kind of planning for this kind of January 2021, this big release with all these all this new stuff, and I had kind of set up the website to be formatted a little bit differently, and I was looking to do that in January, and then all the files have been recovered. They all got lost on this drive. I thought they were lost. Some of them got damaged. I had the hard drive take a dump. This is what happened. And took it to the data recovery place. Most of it's recoverable. The things that were not, I should probably talk about. So the episode I did with Ushia, I talked about posting the rest of that conversation on YouTube. That those files got damaged, so I wasn't able to do that. So I know I had talked about posting the rest of my conversation with her on YouTube. That did not. That's why that didn't happen. I know I also spoke about posting the little excerpt of the episode with Dave Swift about how he met with Scott LaFaro's sister, and he had contributed with the book about Scott LaFaro. Again, that file, like those two podcasts episodes, those got damaged, unfortunately. So I'll just have to get them both back on the podcast, and we can talk about that more then. Yeah, because I really did like the part about Dave connecting with the LaFaro family and being a contributor to that book. So that's what's going on with the podcast, right? I'm in like a little bit of this holding pattern until I get some of those files back. I have started transcribing some new stuff, and the deal with all of it is the transcription, but then how to apply the concepts in the transcription. So it's a very meticulous approach to bass education, I guess. I don't know, bass studies. It's a little bit more pinpointed than some arpeggio patterns. It's let's check out what Jamerson did. Let's check out what Paul McCartney did. Let's check out what Sting did, and then how can we practice these concepts? That's the idea behind the Bass Shed, is practicing the concepts. So, for all of those that go to the website and tell me that there's not enough content on there, I know. But I appreciate your feedback, and I appreciate you going over there and checking it out. This was installment 1 of the Chris Wabich podcast series that will probably take us well into the summer of being able to continually hear from Chris Wabich. That's what I got, folks. That's what I got. Hit me up on any of the social media things. Instagram at the Bass Shed, Twitter at Bass Shed, Facebook the Bass Shed. Trying to think what else. Those are the 3 top ones. That's enough. That's what I got, folks. Catch you on the next one in a minute.